is Kathy Worgul, and I'm your hostess for the conversation today with Bridget Rusk, and we're glad to have Bridget here. I've heard she's talked about her faith journey before, and so we're going to get an update now, right?
It's always changing.
Yeah, welcome. That's true. It is always changing, and I think that's what's so exciting about having a faith, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It gets better. Sometimes you struggle with it, but it's always changing. Something
Yeah.
new and different every single time.
I guess if we talk about journeys, we have to talk about bumps in the road. So
Absolutely.
yeah, there are going to be bumps too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thrilled to have you. I'm curious, since we haven't run into each other before, how did you get to St. Joseph's? And then we're going to back up and hear some more.
Yeah. My husband and I moved out to Eldersburg 21 years ago. So we built a house right across the street, and we have been there ever since. And so all of my children, minus my oldest daughter, who was 2 when we moved up here, the other 3 were baptized here. They've all received First Communion here. They've all received confirmation here.
This is like
All the sacraments.
Wow.
We've been at St. Joe's since the day we got up here.
I envy you because I've moved around so much.
Yeah.
So when you moved here 21 years ago, you were moving from, are you from Maryland?
Yeah, we were right down the Howard County side of Laurel.
Oh, okay.
So, and we did, St. Francis was our church down there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came up here, one of the first things we noticed were like, oh, there's a Catholic church right across the street from our neighborhood.
Can't get much better than that.
How convenient.
Wow. Well, so were you raised Catholic? Or?
Yes, born and raised Irish Catholic. I was born in Annapolis, and when I was 3, we moved to Colorado. I grew up in Colorado, and then we moved back to Maryland when I was a freshman in high school, and we've been here ever since. We were down in Columbia.
Oh, okay.
And lived down there, and then and then from Columbia, met my husband, and we got married, and that's when we lived in Laurel, Columbia area, and then we moved out here.
So you've raised your kids as Catholic.
Yep.
You were raised as a Catholic.
Mm-hmm. And my husband was born and raised Catholic as well.
Wow. Do you see any differences between how you raised your kids and how you were raised?
Yes. Because we were out in Colorado when I grew up. So our Catholic church was probably a good 45 minutes from our house. Anything was 45 minutes from our house. The grocery store.
I've heard that about Colorado.
Yeah. A little more spread out. So I remember, and my mom was devout, and my father was an airline pilot, so a lot of times he was out of town. So it was just my mom getting 3 kids ready, trying to get out the door. We were never on time for Mass, ever. We always walked in after the priest was already up there.
But you got there.
Well, I should not say never. We were on time because my mom did volunteer and played piano. So she started doing that. And then when I was old enough, I played flute. And so we would play usually 5 p.m. Saturday Masses. She would do piano and I would be on flute, and then we'd have somebody singing.
Yeah.
So we'd kind of be the music liturgical people there for the 5 p.m. Masses.
That's terrific. Now, it's the difference besides distance. Was it a different education, or did you go through what they called CCD or RTIA?
Yeah, we did our normal CCD classes, so that was pretty typical. I never did Vacation Bible School, which is something that all of my kids did here at St. Joseph's. So happy that it's coming back for the little kids out there now. I'm like, I feel so happy for all the little kids that are out there now, because I know it wasn't around for a while with pandemic and everything else. So, but all of my kids did Vacation Bible School here, and they loved it. We still sing some of the songs that they learned there, and they're like 20. My oldest is 23 now. She still remembers the songs.
That's wonderful. That really got through.
Yeah. So we never went to Vacation Bible School, but we did go to CCD. I remember probably the biggest difference was that I ended up, and this was my decision, my mother gave me the choice of whether or not I wanted to be confirmed. And at that point, we were back here in Maryland. And I was I was at that age. I was struggling. My grandfather had just passed away, and I was struggling with the Catholic religion because I was mad.
Yeah.
I was mad at God for taking my grandfather. And so that was probably my first bump in the road as far as having a struggle with the Catholic Church. And I think at the church that we went to, I know it's very church specific. It was a 1-year program. And my mom said, you know, I'm not going to commit you to it if you're not going to be committed to it. And I said, well, I don't want to do it. And so that was it. So I did not get confirmed when you typically get confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that is similar is that I also gave all of my children that choice
Mm-hmm.
because I thought that was the beginning of the pathway for them to become adults in the Catholic Church, which is what you're doing when you're being confirmed.
Yeah.
You're committing to the Catholic Church
Yeah.
as adults. And if they're adults enough to go through this process, then they were adults enough to make that decision on their own.
I love it.
So I was given the choice, and then that is something that I did follow my mom's footsteps with all 4 of mine. And I gave them the choice at the beginning of year 1, and then I gave them the choice again at the beginning of year 2. So you're getting ready to go into your 2nd year here, and we need to rethink this and rediscuss this and make sure that this is what you want. And luckily, all 4 of them did choose to complete both years. It was nip and tuck there for a while, but we got it done.
Well, so I'm really curious. Can I ask you, when did you get confirmed?
That was that's a huge part of my faith journey. So I went to the University of Notre Dame for college, and out in South Bend, Indiana. And when I left for college, I had gotten away from the church. I went to church on the weekends. As a busy teenager and busy young adult, I got a job. So a lot of times I wasn't going to church with my family. I was going to church when I could, if I could, sometimes not at all. It wasn't a huge priority to me.
Sure.
And my mom was not happy about that. She would point that out. But once again, you know, I gotta work, Mom, sorry. And
yeah.
So I went out to Notre Dame, and I remember very clearly, at Notre Dame, every dorm has a chapel in it. Somewhere.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Really cool. So not only do you have gorgeous basilica right there on campus, but every single dorm has its own chapel.
Wonderful.
And so I remember I'd settled in and I had made some friends. And typically in the dorms, masses are held at like 10 or 10:30 on Sunday nights because you're studying or whatever. And the first several weeks I was there, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about going to church. I mean, I'm in college. I was, tried out and made the marching band. So I was, getting into that. And then study started. And so I was trying to learn how to do all that, which was, church was the furthest thing on my mind. I mean, not even close. And then I remember some of my friends one night, they swung by my room and I was studying and they're like, why don't you come to Mass with us? And I was like, I've got a ton of stuff to do, blah, 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 blah. Bridget, it's 45 minutes. Come to Mass with us. It's like, fine, whatever. So it's great because you go to Mass in your pajamas or your sweats or whatever.
Wow.
Our dorm, we had just big giant pillows and bean bags. That's what we sat on. But it was, so I went to that Mass, and that was when I started coming back to God and getting back to the church.
What was it that sort of took hold that was different or interesting?
Notre Dame makes Catholicism easy for young adults, and thank God they do.
So tell me more about that, because easy is good in that instance.
You need that because
so accessible. Is that what you mean?
Accessible, relatable. It was the huge part. So they've got, the priests that are coming in are sometimes they're your professors. Sometimes they're your RA, like your rector's assistants or your rectors. You're living with them. You're living in the dorms with them. Like every dorm has a nun or a priest that is the rector of the dorm. So you're seeing the priests and nuns on a daily basis.
So they're real people.
They're normal, real people. They wear clothes.
Wow.
Not just robes. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, so, and then a lot of times we had young priests that were going to Old College or Holy Cross, which are the Old College is the, I guess they're getting, not even the seminary, but kind of preparing to get into the seminary.
Oh, right.
Contemplating, you know, some.
I think Franciscan has something like that.
Yeah. So they were either, you know, studying to start or thinking about becoming priests or whatever, but the actual priests were actual priests that would come and talk to us, obviously. But they, whatever the gospel was, somehow they were fantastic about relating it to college life. The life you were living right then and there.
Wow.
And that was the biggest thing as a child growing up, and I'm sure all of our kids growing up, the stories that are being told, or the homilies, most of the time, kids don't understand what in the world they're talking about. I do love it when we get a priest, like at the youth mass on Sunday evenings. A lot of times they would relate the gospel to the kids that were there for their confirmation prep mass.
Sure.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
To actually be like, oh, wait a second, that's how that is. So they would really relate the gospel to everyday life in college somehow, some way. It was pretty amazing. And it really, that's what made me want to go, want to be there. It wasn't like I had to anymore. Right. I started choosing to go.
That's a big deal.
It was huge.
That was big for me because I was a preacher's kid.
Right.
And I always had to go. And I wanted to want to.
Yeah. So
you had the want to.
I had the want to for the first time in my life, because as kids we go because our parents make us go.
Yeah.
But it was my choice. I could choose to stay in my room and study, or I could use that as a beautiful study break and go down and sit with my friends on the floor in our jammies and really, you were really in the presence of God.
Yeah.
It really was. It was
so
beautiful.
I'm hearing two things, that you were in the presence of God, but you were also learning about how to live your life.
Yeah.
With
as
faith.
a Catholic.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a Catholic. I mean, like I said, it's pretty hard not to be Catholic at the University of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would think so.
You're living with priests and nuns. You're going to classes with them. They're your professors. They're your, they're on, sports teams sometimes with you. So it's tough. It's tough not to be Catholic. Yeah. But still doable, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you got connected to the people. You got connected to God.
Right.
I mean, wow.
And then I started to head up the musical. I was the liturgical commissioner for my dorm. I decided to be the musical liturgical commissioner. So I had a team of people, and we would meet with Sister C was our rectress every week, and we would plan the music for the mass. And who's going to play what? I'm going to play flute. We've got somebody. We didn't usually have a piano in the little chapels, but like I had my flute, and we had some other musicians. We had singers, and so we would all meet and we would plan out the music for the liturgy.
Wow!
And so I did that for my junior year and my senior. I think I got involved second semester sophomore year, and then I did it then, and then my junior year and my senior year.
Yeah.
So
what a big turnaround.
Oh, huge turnaround.
From I ain't going to mass to let's plan the
mass. And the biggest thing was that then during my junior year, I said I want to be confirmed. And so I went through the confirmation process during my junior year of college at Notre Dame, and I was confirmed in the Basilica, which is the closest to God that one could possibly be on earth.
Wow.
It was undescribable.
Yeah,
there's no words for it.
You Can't come up with anything.
Yeah, it was just
Wow.
the most spiritually amazing experience I think I've ever had.
Mhm.
And that was the high point.
Oh, yeah.
That was a high point.
So how did that faith that got really kindled there, rekindled, I should say, how did that express itself? How did you express that after college?
So basically, I think that's the fire that kept me going as I was starting a young family. So when we were first married, of course, church wasn't a huge priority right now. Even though we were both born and raised Catholic, and I was, I graduated from college being very strong in the Catholic faith. And we would go to church on the weekends. Typically, we'd go with his parents or my parents or whatever. But it wasn't a huge commit. If there's a football game or something else on, we might not be able to go to church today.
It happens, doesn't it?
But we were living our fun little young married lives and everything. And then we started having our children, and we both knew we wanted to raise our children in the Catholic faith. And so our kids kept us strong.
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again.
Our
I've never heard that
kids kept
before.
us strong in the Catholic faith. Because I felt a duty and an obligation, and my husband did as well, to raise them
Mm-hmm.
in the or at least start raising them in the Catholic tradition. And then, like I said, once they got to be confirmation age, that's when I really sort of stepped back and let them
Right.
do what they wanted to do. But so we kept tight with the church for a very long time while our children were young, because first of all, we had 4 kids, and someone was always in a sacrament. so someone was always getting their first communion and preparing for that, or reconciliation, or baptism, or whatever. So we were always going through the sacraments for a pretty consistently for a long time there.
Yeah. That's a lot to juggle,
Yeah.
but it sounds like it was.
Well,
it was a good
Absolutely.
thing to be
And
doing.
it was great, because without even knowing it, it kept us close to the church.
Sure.
It really did.
The journey I'm on.